I'm a psychologist, and due to the success of my most recent video where I talked about the back rooms and why it is so scary, I thought I would expand out and talk more about the psychology of liminal spaces. So let's get started, shall we? A liminal space refers to a physical location that acts as a transition. So for example, you use a corridor to transition. And what I mean by transition is you literally walk through them. So you would walk through a corridor, you would walk through an underpass, and you would walk up stairwells. The problem is that sometimes people find these spaces that gives them anxiety or a sense of fear or eeriness. And that's really what I'm going to be exploring and explaining to you in this video is why. Why do some people find liminal spaces scary? Why do some people find them to provoke anxiety or fear or whatnot? I also know that liminal can also refer to other things like transitional periods in your life. So it's not necessarily just physical spaces, but I'll be exploring just the psychological explanations for the physical spaces and why they create fear in some people and anxiety and whatnot. So in order for me to help you understand why, we need to cover 5 key psychological principles: schema theory, predictive processing, threat ambiguity, behavioral settings, and evolutionary spatial preference. These are very, very well established psychological principles. So let's begin. Schema theory. I'm going to demonstrate them all instead of explaining them to you. So let's demonstrate the first one. In order to demonstrate it, I want to ask you this question. When you think of a school hallway, what do you think of? So have a think for a second. If I was to ask you, picture a school hallway in your mind, what else do you picture as a part of that? Some people might say lockers. Some people might say fluorescent lights. Students, squeaky floors, bell ringing, classroom doors. You might have pictured some other things. That's all good. What I'm trying to demonstrate to you here is how humans memorize things. See, it's become very well established in the psychology theory that humans memorize things by putting things into groups or categories. Everything is sort of slotted into your mind through memorization with a bit of order and structure. So the school hallway, can you see how you've slotted these 6 things into the group of a school hallway? And this is how humans memorize things. Let's run through another example. When you think of a birthday party, what else do you think of? You might say a cake, balloons, guests laughing, music playing, wrapped presents, lit candles. So can you see how your brain has categorized related concepts into a group? In this case, it's a birthday party. Now, everyone sort of creates their own groups, so to speak, but some groups are also universally created. So examples of universally created memorization categories is fruits and vegetables. So people, for the most part, slot certain things into the fruit category in their mind and other things into the vegetable category in their mind as a way to organize and structure the memories. You could think of the human memory bank as a big archive or a library. So this is vital to understanding the anxiety associated with liminal spaces, which I'll explain at the end of how it all kind of comes together. This is the first key concept. Humans memorize things and sort that into groups or categories of related ideas. Otherwise, if we didn't have a structure in our mind for sorting things out, the memories would be all over the place and it would be chaos. So we've naturally evolved to develop a system of structure and order in the context of memorization. So hopefully that makes sense. Principle number 2, predictive processing. So once again, I will demonstrate this. You walk into a kitchen. What do you predict will happen? Specifically, what do you predict you will see? So have a think. I just wrote down a refrigerator. So that sounds pretty logical, right? You walk into a kitchen, you might see a refrigerator. Once again, you might have come up with other things, other things that you predict you'll see. Next one, you enter a classroom. What do you predict you'll see? Desks and chairs. You might have said other students or teachers. That's all good. Next one, you step into an elevator. What do you predict you'll see? Once again, you can come up with your own things. I just wrote down buttons and mirrors. You open a hotel room. What do you expect you'll see when you walk into the hotel room? Bed, nightstand. Maybe you would have listed some other things. You walk down a hallway. You walk down a hotel hallway at 3 a.m. This is a bit more specific. What do you predict you'll see? It's a little harder this time, hopefully, in that I've been a bit more specific here, and I've said, what do you predict you'll see at 3 a.m.? You might find that it's a little harder to predict what you'll see next. You might say nothing, or you might say it just would be dark or scary. But the key idea here is it's a little harder to predict what you'll see. So this is all vital for a few reasons. First of all, human beings naturally try and predict what will come next. Even when I was walking through this and the structure became a bit repetitive, I'm sure you kind of anticipated what I would ask you next. Your brain was already naturally trying to predict what will come next. The structure of this presentation is a bit repetitive, so naturally over time you will be able to predict what will come next, and that gives you a sense of calmness or happiness or clarity, because you can predict what will come next. But then what can happen is sometimes you can't predict what will happen next. And some people might like this. You can think of plot twists in a film or a TV show, and people like that idea that you can't predict what might happen next, but other people don't. And it's when there's a difference between what you think will happen next and then what actually happens, it creates a sense of anxiety for some people. So for example, walking down the hallway at 3 a.m., some people might not be able to imagine what they will specifically see. That might create a sense of anxiety for them. So predictive processing, super key for understanding how humans process information. And since you've probably started to learn the structure of this presentation, you'll know that threat ambiguity is the third concept I want to cover. You're already starting to predict what will happen next. So let's demonstrate this one. I want you to decide if each of these scenarios is safe or dangerous for you. A sunny park full of families. Do you consider that safe or dangerous? I would imagine most people would say safe, right? A bear charging directly at you. Would you consider that safe or dangerous? I'm sure most people would say dangerous. An empty parking garage at 1 a.m. Would you say that's safe or dangerous or something else? It's a little harder, I would imagine. You might be like, well, I don't know. It's unknown. A children's playground at dusk, no children. Was that safe or dangerous, or what do you think? I imagine some people would write down they don't know. It's unknown. It's harder to know. So this is key to understanding, is that much like with the previous slide talking about predictive processing, we also try and predict whether we think something will be safe. So we kind of it's kind of like an educated guess. I mean, a bear charging is probably pretty obviously going to be unsafe and dangerous, right? But there's this odd category of unknowns where it's like, well, an empty parking garage at 1 a.m., it could be unsafe. It's harder to know, right? Or a children's playground at dusk, but no children, If it was a children's playground during the day and there was children, you'd probably say, yeah, that's safe. But it's that change in the context and the lack of children, that turns it from safe to, well, ultimately ambiguous, right? You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know whether it's safe or unsafe. And this is super key to understand. Did I put another one down? Oh, yeah. A long hotel corridor, flickering light, no one around. Would you say that's safe or unsafe? Or something else? I imagine most people would probably say it's hard to know, right? Because our brain is naturally trying to predict what we think will be safe and not safe. And for those odd cases that you don't know, you get stuck in this world of, well, it's unknown. And that's what can create a sense of anxiety and fear, right? Next one, behavioral settings. So I'm going to demonstrate this one again. This is critical concept number 4, behavioral settings. So each space comes with a script. Notice when the script disappears. So what I'm really asking here is an office space with desks and computers. Behaviorally, what do you think you should be doing in that context? What do you think is the appropriate course of behavior to do? In an office with desks and computers, you'd probably say sit, work, type, or something like that, okay? A restaurant with menus on tables. What do you think you should be doing here? What is the expected behavior? Sit, order, eat, food, talk. A gym with weights and treadmills. Once again, what do you think you should be doing here in this particular context? Exercise, move. You might have come up with some other things, but can you see how certain settings create certain behavioral expectations? Now, an empty stairwell at midnight. What do you expect that you should be doing there? It's a little bit less clear, right? Should you be walking through it? Should you even be there in the first place? Should you be hiding? Can you see how in some settings there's a very clear behavioral expectation, but in other settings it's a little bit more like, well, what do I do? Here's another one. A long corridor, no doors, no signs. What's the expected behavior? It's a bit unknown, right? Last concept. Hopefully everyone's keeping up. Hopefully I'm not going too fast, people. Feel free to replay the video, I'm sure, if I'm going too fast. Last concept, evolutionary preference. And once again, I'll demonstrate this one. Notice what you feel when you're looking at these pictures. An open meadow. Hopefully people who are watching on a mobile phone can see these pictures. So what do you feel? What do you think? Does this relax you? Does this stress you out? I imagine for most people, it would probably just be like somewhat relaxing, right? What about this one? What do you feel when you look at that? Stress, maybe, horror, intrigue, maybe, but certainly not the same as the first one. What about this one? What do you feel? It looks kind of calming. I mean, some people might say it's a bit scary. What about this one? What do you feel? Anxiety, stress, angst. And last two. What do you feel? So the key point with this one is that some locations naturally make you feel anxiety, stress, fear, right? Other locations, the meadow, the forest, and nature ultimately might make you feel a sense of calmness. Humans have naturally evolved to prefer the environment, to prefer things like greenery, shrubs, and trees. A corridor or a liminal space is not really a naturally occurring environment. It's more of an artificial environment, which creates a different sense. It doesn't create a sense of calmness like nature does. It creates a sense of, well, I'm about to combine all of that in the last slide for you to hopefully allow you to really see how it all comes together and how so much of our psychology is governed by automatic processes that people don't even really think about until you really think about them. because it just feels a bit off, right? Like you look at this dark stone room and it's like, and then you go out into the forest and the sunlight, it's like, right? It just feels different. So how does it all come together? Hopefully this will make sense to people. I feel like I'm absolutely overloading everyone with information. When you're in a hallway, your brain has loaded the hallway group in your mind. But where is everyone? This hallway, you have a schema of lockers, other people, squeaky floors, right? But in a liminal space, it's missing. Some of those bits and pieces are missing. It just has maybe the absolute bare bones. So right off the bat, your group, the group that you've memorized, the group of information that you've memorized in your mind is violated. You expect footsteps, you expect to hear voices, you expect doors shutting, but nothing comes. So there's a prediction error. There is you expected something, but it's not there. Then that creates a sense of threat ambiguity, where it's not necessarily dangerous because it is a hallway, you've seen it before, but where is everyone? So it's not necessarily safe because you expect footsteps, voices, doors, but nothing comes. So you can't decide. You get stuck in this world of, is it safe? Is it not safe? I've seen a hallway before. I expected people, but there's no one there. What? Then what happens is you go like, should I stay? Should I leave? There's no instructions for this. What am I supposed to do in this particular hallway? Am I supposed to just run through it? Am I supposed to not step in there at all? Why is it that no one's there? Why is this violating what I expected to see? And then last of all, it's an artificial space. This wasn't created by nature. This was created by humans. So there's no sight lines. There's no refuge. Every instinct kind of tells you to leave because it's kind of like, this isn't nature. This isn't a tree. This isn't a meadow. This is some artificially created space that has no clear expectations for what I'm supposed to be doing. Run? Question mark. What do I do? Because in a forest, people kind of know what to do. You kind of just walk through it. You relax, deep breaths, meditation, whatever, right? But in these artificially created man-made spaces, like liminal spaces, it kind of violates a whole bunch of human expectations. You expected to see people, they weren't there. Is it dangerous? Is it safe? Do I leave? Do I go? What's going on? So it's all 5 things firing off at once. It's not one thing, it's everything, all at once. Schema violations, prediction error, threat ambiguity, missing behavioral scripts, evolutionary alarms. These 5 mechanisms come together to create fear and anxiety in the context of liminal spaces. I hope this all made sense. Please rewatch the video if it didn't. Please let me know in the comments if I don't make sense. I try to simplify it as best I can and provide lots and lots of demonstrations. That's the end of this video. I feel like I'm presenting to people, but there's no one here, so I can't even ask you for questions. You can leave questions in the comments. Bye-bye.